call this meeting of the Galt City Council to order. The date is May 17th. I'm getting ahead of month. Time is 7:01. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Here. Councilmember Hewer? Here. Councilmember Campion?
Here.
Councilmember Powers? Here. Mayor Cruz?
Here. If you could all rise for a silent prayer followed by the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on. Can we get the video statement, please?
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T UVerse cable systems. Tonight's meeting will air Friday, May 20th at 2 p.m. and Saturday, May 21st at 9 a.m. It is being closed captioned and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The City Council meeting videos are also archived on the city's website at www.ci.galt.ca.us. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Thank you. Agenda approvals, additions, and/or deletions. Councilmember Campion, you had something you wanted to move?
Yes, I was seeing if the council would be agreeable to moving item G5 up to after the consent calendar. I believe we have people from Sacramento to speak on that.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so be it.
I'd like to pull E3 from the consent calendar.
Sorry,
E3 from the consent calendar.
going E3. Okay. Very good. We will move on to presentations. Swearing in ceremony for our newest sergeant, Sergeant Richard Small. Chief, you want to start this off for us, please?
I would love to. On behalf of the City of Galt and the Galt Police Department and all the members that are here, it's a very proud moment. It's going to be the swearing in of Sergeant Richard Small. The swearing in is one of those things that, as an officer, you never, ever, ever forget that moment. Who was there and how it happened, and whether you got choked up or it was moving for you or for your family. It's incredible. And we had 9 unbelievable officers apply for the position of sergeant. They went through a long process. There were 2 external oral panels that they went through. They had to go through an oral panel with me, which is, I think, was probably more brutal than the 2 outside oral panels. And from that, I made my first promotion since coming to Galt, and that was Richard Small. He has an amazing history and background. On top of all the amazing things he's done, he was the acting sergeant in investigations at the time of his promotion. He's been a corporal with our department, a weaponless defense instructor, and he's also a Medal of Valor winner in 2014. Today, I know that his wife Stacy and his daughter Macy are here, and I just want to say thank you all for being here. Everybody that came for the swearing in, it's just an amazing event. So, Sergeant Small, you need to make your way up here and face your audience.
Okay, I, you state your name,
I, Richard Small,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States,
to the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and during such time
and during such time
as I'm an employee
as I'm an employee
for the City of Galt,
for the City of Galt,
I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the position of police sergeant
of the position of police sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Sergeant Small. Congratulations. This is your chance.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for this opportunity. It's something I've aspired to do since coming here, and actually since becoming a law enforcement officer. Let me first of all thank Chief Sockman for choosing me. I greatly appreciate it. You're right. This is one of those moments that I will not forget, and I appreciate your support in this. I also want to thank all my coworkers who showed up today and took time out of their schedule to be here and support me. That means a lot to me. And of course, most importantly, my family, my wife Stacy and my daughter Macy, who are my reason for being. Also want to point out my good friend Matt Burton, who showed up from the Sheriff's Department where I used to work. The one guy who still likes me there, so. So just thank you for this opportunity. I assure you I will do a great job, and I look forward to serving the community in this new capacity.
Congratulations. Our next presentation will be the Sacramento Area Sustainable Business Program Award and Certification.
Good evening, council members and members of the audience. My name is June Livingston, and I work for the County of Sacramento for an organization called the Business Environmental Resource Center, BERC. And I was wondering, has anybody heard of BERC? I have my good audience then. BERC is the Business Environmental Resource Center, and we were created in 1993 by the County Board of Supervisors to provide businesses with free and confidential permit and regulatory compliance assistance. Yes, I did say free, and I did say confidential. We were put in place so that businesses would have a place to go to get that kind of assistance without fear of getting fines or penalties. So I am here today to actually talk about one of BERC's programs, which is the Sustainable Business Program. And in that program, BERC voluntarily certifies businesses that voluntarily adopt environmentally friendly practices in the areas of energy conservation, water conservation, pollution prevention, green building, solid waste reduction, and transportation and air quality. It is in that regard, I am here to present a certificate of achievement to Cal Waste Recovery Systems. They are one of our sustainable businesses and one of your own, so we are very proud to be here. They have successfully demonstrated a commitment to environmentally sustainable practices, and they have achieved a silver status certification, which is not easy to do, but that's just how good they are. And some examples of some of the things that they have done We have certain criteria areas, and in 3 of the areas, they have actually superseded and gone way beyond what a normal business does. Some examples of the things they have done include, in 2015, they had some significant improvements to existing stormwater bioswale systems, and what that is, I don't know if you're familiar with what a bioswale is, just to make sure that we don't have things going into the storm drain and polluting our rivers. That's one thing. They provide commercial washout service for the community that they serve. I'm sure that includes Gulf. They provide commercial paint services for the community they serve as well. They participate in Adopt a Waterway and Adopt open space programs. They use less toxic chemicals in their processes. And in 2013, they had an assessment by SMUD, which is actually required for energy conservation to attain the silver status. They also adopt a zero waste policy, which we love, and they are a standout business in your community and in Sacramento County, period. Needless to say, when the Burke staff came to do their certification, they were impressed by how clean the operation is. They told me, make sure when you get to the podium to say they were absolutely phenomenal. It is my honor and my privilege to be here today to present them with their certificate for all of the areas. They completed all 6 of the areas. And so I'd like to invite Dave Vacaraza, who is the owner of Cal Waste, and who else? Lisa Holtz, to the podium so I can present them with their certificate. And we are hoping each year we have an annual award ceremony for businesses, and we're hoping very much that they would apply for that award so I could come back again and present them with that award. So, this is your award. Get to the mic. This is your award, and we want to present it to you. And thank you for being a standout and stellar business in your community.
The reason Dave's handing me this plaque is because Dave asked me one day, see this little thing here, it says sustainable business, we need to look into that. And so he set me on a project, and I learned more than I ever thought I would know. And what I recognized is that only 2 other businesses, I believe, in the Galt area are a part of this. And it is so valuable for all the businesses in our area. Water conservation, which is a big issue right now, energy conservation can save our local businesses lots of money, as well as our own natural resources in Galt. So I want to thank you for coming and helping sharing with us. And I'll give it back to Dave now. We did all the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Picture.
I don't get it either.
So I've given, just one more last thing, if you had any questions about Burke or the Sustainable Business Program, I've given some information to Amy Mendez, and we've been in conversation about that to help bring that forward into the city, to the businesses here. So if you have any questions about that, we'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, our next presentation is the Sacramento Yellow Mosquito and Vector Control presentation.
appreciate the council inviting us out to talk a little bit about mosquitoes. It's starting that time of season. I'm joined here by your appointee, Fred Gaethel, on our board. My name's Gary Goodman, and I'm the district manager for Sacramento and Yolo Mosquito and Vector Control District. We have a, well, I hit the right area. I'm in the wrong direction. Yeah, that's not good. Well, we're definitely coming into mosquito season here as the weather's starting to warm up a little bit, and we're starting to come a bit out of a drought, hopefully, from that perspective, which actually had a pretty significant impact on West Nile virus activity and mosquito production that we've had over the past couple of years. So, so hopefully what we'll see this upcoming season will be a little bit different, but we have some other challenges that we want to try to deal with. So, yeah, that'll work. So, okay, perfect. So, just in general, I wanted to talk our district specifically, Sacramento and Yolo County. We have an office in Elk Grove. We also have an office in Woodland. And our geographic area is quite diverse because essentially from Elk Grove all the way up to the Sacramento County border is all urban landscape. And then we have these small islands like Galt, and then in Yolo County, all, for the most part, agricultural and very rural with little pockets of Davis and Woodland and Knights Landing and Winters and those types of things. And unfortunately, mosquitoes don't necessarily understand the boundaries as to where they emerge and then they fly. So they don't necessarily know that they're a Sacramento mosquito or a Yolo County mosquito or even here a San Joaquin mosquito. And so it's quite a big challenge because we also have a lot of diverse landscape, a lot of agricultural and rice fields and wetlands. And then down here, we have quite a bit of the delta as well that has a significant impact on mosquito production, and then other wildlife refuges like Cosumnes River Preserve, which can be a significant issue as well in terms of what they have there. So just want to briefly, mosquito life cycle, only female mosquitoes bite. They're looking for the blood so that they can develop the protein to lay their eggs. Male mosquitoes only feed on nectar, so you don't need to worry necessarily about male mosquitoes. So female mosquitoes, when they do take that blood meal, they're then looking for a place to lay all of their eggs. They'll lay anywhere from 150 to 250 eggs at a time. They'll go through 4 larval stages into a pupal stage and then emerge as an adult. So it takes about, in the heat of summer, about 7 to 10 days or so for those to go from egg laying all the way back up to adult. So the target of what we're trying to do is to try to get them in their larval stage, find them in the aquatic stage, whether it be in those rice fields or those irrigation ditches or backyard swimming pools, whatever that may be, is to try to target and kill them there before they emerge as adults, because once they come out as adults and they take more blood meals, they lay a lot more eggs, and you start to get a bigger and bigger problem moving forward. So a lot of different mosquito type habitats, some that are very easy for us to see. Again, when you look at rice fields and irrigation ditches, very easy for us to spot from the road and be able to check. A lot of natural sources like wetlands or even retention basins for stormwater things are things that we check, but those are wide open. Some of the more challenging things that we have are what's in your backyard. And this is one of the messages that we try to get out to the general public is look around your yard and make sure you're not breeding mosquitoes on your own property. So, you know, one backyard swimming pool that's not being maintained that will turn green will produce thousands and thousands of mosquitoes. And again, those mosquitoes fly and can have really an impact on an entire neighborhood. Very difficult for us to spot these things. But even things as not changing out dog water dishes or bird baths or just buckets or something like that that has filled up with water based on your sprinklers. We've had a little bit of a break from that with the drought, with a lot of water conservation efforts. And I think people have the best of intentions, but sometimes we go to properties and we see buckets and buckets of water that they've been saving from washing their dishes or in their shower, and they just put them in the backyard and they say, oh, I'll get to that later, and we find them breeding mosquitoes. So the intentions are there to do the right thing, but sometimes not always necessarily the follow through. So it's a lot of education to make sure that you're looking around your yard and you're not producing mosquitoes on your own property. So what we talk about, again, is water management is key. If you manage your water, you'll have fewer mosquitoes. Especially with this drought, we saw quite a bit of a break in terms of people watering their lawns, of really starting to shorten that time frame so that it wasn't going off into the gutters and down into the storm drains. Because storm drains are a significant issue for us. They're designed to hold water, and then of course they have a lot of leaf litter and grass and debris, so it's a great organic area for mosquitoes to breed. So we want to make sure that you just water what your lawn is and don't make sure it's not running off into the street. And again, check that yard once a week for any standing water and make sure you dump it out. And then of course we have a mosquito fish program that we provide mosquito fish free of charge for anybody that has a suitable source. So what we do is we go through what we call integrated mosquito management. And the first one's public information. We go to a lot of public events, a lot of neighborhood associations, do a lot of school presentations, try to make sure that the public in general knows about mosquitoes, about specifically West Nile virus, and what they can do to try to protect themselves. So we even have an active advertising campaign. We're on the radio and television and try to make sure that we're being diverse in terms of what our messaging is to get out to as many people as possible. And then, of course, outreach efforts like this to make sure that we're talking with elected officials and then the general public that are watching things online. So then we have our surveillance program, which is we set traps, hundreds of traps throughout our district every week, and collect those traps to see what the population of the mosquitoes are doing. Is the population going up? Is it going down? And of course, in that surveillance, we're testing for mosquitoes to see if they're carrying disease. Specifically, the one that we're worried about and will continue to worry about now is West Nile virus. But we set traps and tests on a weekly basis and essentially almost get information in daily to be able to guide what our resources should be. Then we get into what our biological control program is, and that's for the most part our mosquito fish program. We have 23 ponds at our Elk Grove facility dedicated towards breeding mosquito fish, and we plant about 4,000 pounds a year in just Sacramento and Sacramento and Yolo County. So we're the largest mosquito fish breeding facility in the country. I'm very proud of that aspect of our program. And then we get into physical control. We have a dump truck and a backhoe, and we offer services to landowners to help manage their property in terms of, do they have an irrigation ditch that is choked full of weeds that's holding standing water, or beaver dams that may be backing up water onto a particular property. So we offer those services. We work extensively with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Cosumnes River Preserve, those types of entities, those land managers, to make sure that they're not breeding mosquitoes and try to give them best management practices moving forward to be able to try to reduce that. And then, of course, then we get into our control larvicide and adulticide. So as I mentioned, we try to target all of those aquatic sources of mosquitoes to try to get them in that area. But at some point when we have adult mosquito production, then we have to come out with adult measures. And so those adult mosquito control measures could be a backpack or an ATV or a truck or even an airplane. To date, since West Nile virus first came into our particular area in 2004, we've never done aerial applications over Gulf, but we have done quite a number of truck applications throughout different parts of Gulf, in and around. And of course, we work extensively with San Joaquin, which is right next door to us. That of course, any mosquitoes that you're being bothered by in Gulf are specifically coming from San Joaquin. I want to make sure that's on the record. They're marked if you look at them closely. That's tag on. So I do want to talk about what diseases mosquitoes can carry. So West Nile virus is the number one that we're definitely concerned with. We've had it in California since 2003. It started in 1999 in New York, and within 4 years steadily made its way across the country. It's not going away. So we're going to continue to come back every year and talk about West Nile virus because it does have an impact on our community and will continue to. But they also carry diseases such as dengue or malaria, chikungunya. Zika virus has been in the news quite a lot recently over the last few months, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And at this time, actually even dog heartworm. So dog heartworm is transmitted by mosquitoes as well. So you want to make sure that you're giving your pets the appropriate medication to stop dog heartworm. So just real briefly, I want to talk about West Nile virus specifically. So West Nile virus is a bird disease. It's carried by birds. It's vectored by mosquitoes. So a mosquito bites an infected bird, picks it up, and then the next time that mosquito takes a blood meal, either from another bird or a squirrel or a person, it can then transmit the virus to that next host. So, but it is cycled in the birds, and it has it peaks in the summertime, and then it starts to go down in terms of levels over the winter, and then we'll start to see it back up. So it's never going to quite go away, but we want to make sure that it's a bird disease. And in that specifically, the issue that we had over the last couple of years in terms of the drought, which is a bit counterintuitive. You would think over the last couple of years we'll have less water, so therefore we'll have less mosquito. I just talked about water management. What happened is because West Nile virus is a bird disease, wherever you did have water, you had both a congregation of birds and mosquitoes in the same place. And what happened is it tended to amplify things. So we had kind of some bad years over the last couple. So a lot of people ask, what are the general symptoms? And for the most part, they're flu-like symptoms. I don't want to minimize when I say that. When I think of the flu, I think of you feel crummy for a couple days, then you feel really bad for a few days, and you lay in bed, and then a couple days you start to get better, and you come back to work and go from there. So it lasts about a week. The general flu lasts about a week. And for some people, only 1 in 5 people are even going to experience any symptoms associated with West Nile virus. So you could be bitten, and your body learns how to fight it off, and you don't even know you have the infection. But for 1 in 5 people, you're going to develop these flu-like symptoms. And these flu-like symptoms, depending on who you are, can last just that week long, and you recover and everything's fine, and you think, oh, I just had the flu, you didn't even know you had West Nile. Or it can be that worst part of the flu that can last for weeks or even months on end. So it is a very severe and significant disease, and we don't want to minimize when people say it's just flu-like symptoms. There was a study that was done by California Department of Public Health back in 2005, where they did a survey of people that were experiencing symptoms from West Nile virus. And they did a survey 1 year later, and over 50% of the people that had a symptom associated with West Nile virus were still feeling some level of a symptom 1 year later. So that's pretty significant, and it can have a really big impact on your life and your family, and what you do in terms of where you go to work and your daily life. So as I mentioned, the last couple of years, we've had really bad West Nile virus activity in the state of California. So as you can see, in 2005 was the worst year, 880 cases, and then it slowly started to go down. And then over the last couple of years, 2014 and 2015, right around 800 cases both of those years. And the significance of that is we think is because of the drought, because we had that congregation of both mosquitoes and birds in the same place. The scary part of this is that over 70% of these cases over the last 2 years have actually been the neuroinvasive form of the disease. So I talked about West Nile fever, but if your body does not learn how to fight it off, you can develop the more serious, what we call neuroinvasive type of the disease, which is encephalitis type, swelling of the brain, and very significant, leading to paralysis, blindness, and even death. So 70% of these cases that were reported were the neuroinvasive form of the disease. So again, I want to make sure that people are aware that it is a very significant disease, but one that they can try to avoid. And in that, CDC actually estimates for every neuroinvasive form of the disease, you actually have 30 to 70 unreported cases. We really believe that this disease is unreported, because if you feel sick and you stay in bed for a week and you start to recover, you may never get tested, or you may even go to the doctor, but they don't test you for West Nile. They just think you have the general flu. So you're really talking about tens of thousands of people that are being afflicted with West Nile virus on an annual basis in California. So one of the big topics that we've had over the last few months and last couple of years are invasive mosquito species. So in the world in general, there are 3,500 species of mosquitoes. They're not all the same. Some transmit disease, some don't. In our particular area, we have 23 different species of mosquitoes. The most abundant mosquitoes that we have in our area are the ones that transmit West Nile virus. The ones that we're concerned about are these invasive mosquito species, the Asian tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus, and the yellow fever mosquito, Aedes aegypti. These are typically mosquitoes that are found in Mexico, Central America, and South America, more kind of humid environments, but they're starting to make their way into California. Again, they're not reading the textbooks that say that they're not supposed to be here. So they're moving their way up, and they've been found to us as close as Fresno and Madera, and even San Mateo, and established populations, of course, in Southern California. So the concern for us here is that these particular species of mosquitoes transmit other diseases that we don't currently have here: dengue, chikungunya, and now the Zika virus that we're starting to see. And so if we get these mosquito species established here, then we could actually have local transmission of these diseases, because these diseases are carried by people. So if you were to go to, right now, say Puerto Rico, which is being stricken with Zika and chikungunya significantly, and you're there on a vacation, and you're there for a week, and you're sun and sand, and then you get bit by a mosquito, and you come back here, you may exhibit symptoms here, right? And then at that point, you are infected. So if this type of mosquito bites you, it could pick up the disease, and then if it bites someone else, could pass the disease on here. Luckily, to date, over the last few years, we have yet to detect, I'll knock on wood, yet to detect these species of mosquitoes, but they are as close to us as Fresno and Madera, which is a very similar climate to what we have in the summertime. So it is a concern for us moving forward. So a little bit about Zika in and of itself. So Zika was first found in Uganda in 1947. Coincidentally, West Nile virus was found in Uganda 10 years earlier, in 1937. And up until about 2007, it's been considered a very minor disease, very small outbreaks in various areas of Southeast Asia and Africa. It's never really made this big jump that we've had. And so it is transmitted by those two species of mosquitoes. And the concern that we're starting to see now is it can be passed from mother to child, either at delivery or during pregnancy. And so there's a lot of research that needs to be done on that, and can also be transmitted through sexual transmission, which is unheard of for mosquito-borne disease. So, a man can pass it to a woman, and of course, if they get pregnant, then essentially the woman could pass it to the baby, and that's a big concern, specifically because of some of the impacts that you're starting to see. So again, in terms of its infection, this is was always considered to be a very mild mosquito-borne disease. Usually just a 1 week kind of sick, similar to the general flu, never really got any significant other long-term impacts associated with Zika. So there isn't a whole lot of work or study that's been done on it. But obviously it's been hitting the news because of the link to microcephaly. And the link to microcephaly literally means small head. And so what happens is the virus invades the brain of the child and doesn't allow the brain to fully develop, so therefore the head doesn't fully develop. And so when the child is born, severe neurological problems, and neurological problems that are not going to go away. So a significant amount of care that has to take on for that particular child and that family. And they found this link the last couple of years with a significant increase of microcephaly and Zika infection in Brazil. And so we're starting to study that now. And now you have a number of cases in Mexico, and actually Puerto Rico this morning reported their first case of microcephaly from the infections that they have. And so over these next few months, you're probably going to see quite a bit more. So our concern is that we don't want this disease to get here in the United States, and we're doing the best job that we can to try to prevent that. But we want to make sure that people are aware at least of what some of the risks are. So what do we ask the general public to do? We have 7 needs. The first one is drain any standing water. We've talked about that a lot in terms of water management. Make sure that you're not producing mosquitoes on your own property, or if you know of a neighbor who has a bad pool or you see something, give us a call. We usually come out the next day and try to take care of it. Next is dawn and dusk, for times to avoid being outside, because that's when mosquitoes are essentially looking for you to try to take that blood meal. That's when they're the most active. So essentially what they find is the carbon dioxide that you emit, that you breathe out. So when you're exhaling, they're picking up that carbon dioxide, and that's how mosquitoes find you as a host. So if you can avoid being out at dawn and dusk, that would be great. If you do have to go out, dress in long sleeves and long pants. I know that's difficult sometimes in the summer here in this particular area, but we do get those nice delta breezes. But if you can, wear long pants or long sleeves. If you can't do that, defend yourself with a good repellent. We buy repellent by the pallet. We buy a lot of this stuff. We hand it out anywhere we go. It's more than available for anybody that wants to use it. So if you have events in the park, concerts in the park, or movies in the park, or whatever that may be, you have other events that are happening in the evening time, just give us a call. We'll be more than happy to provide you with repellent to hand out to the folks that are going to be impacted. And then, of course, doors and screens. As I mentioned, we get those delta breezes. You want to open up your house. Make sure your doors and screens are in good working order and they don't have holes. Mosquitoes are pretty small. So if you've got that little hole with your dog clawed at the screen, mosquitoes will find their way in, and then they'll bite you when you're sleeping. And then the last C that we have is our district personnel. So all you have to do is give us a call. We typically come out the very next day. We recognize that the earlier we can get to the problem and get them in their larval stage, then the less of a problem we have long term. So we typically respond within 24 hours to any service request or phone call for a visit out to your property. So with that, I wanted to leave it open to see if the council had any questions.
I have a question. Is the repellent 100% effective?
The repellent is tested by, the one that we buy contains DEET. These are tested by CDC for its effectiveness, so they will last quite a long time. There's a lot of different repellents that are out there. DEET is considered to be the gold standard. You really don't need to go any higher than about 20–25% DEET. The more DEET that you have, the longer essentially the repellency will last. So if you're only going to be out in your yard for 45 minutes, you may not necessarily need a 20–25%. You may only need a 5% DEET. But if you're going camping, then you may want a longer term product. So, the shorter term that you have, you just want to make sure that you reapply. The other products that are approved by CDC, oil of lemon eucalyptus, picaridin, and their IR3535, which sounds kind of ominous. I don't know why they give it a name, IR3535. Those are very effective repellents. They just don't last as long as DEET. So you just need to read the instructions and make sure that you're reapplying appropriately, because they will wear off.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question too. Is there any non-toxic spray that you can spray around an area where you see mosquitoes?
Well, not really. I mean, we put out pesticides. Granted, we recognize that, and a pesticide is designed to kill. And what we do at the time that we're making those applications is usually in the evening, and usually actually mosquitoes are the only ones that are active. So other non-target insects like dragonflies or bees, as soon as the sun goes down, those insects are gone. So we try to make our targets at the right appropriate environmental times to be able to target mosquitoes specifically. But in terms of like non-toxic type things to ward out mosquitoes, it depends. If you're looking at larvae, you know, you can put dish soap in certain things, and mosquitoes they have a breathing tube, so they have to be right at the surface, and it breaks the surface tension, so you can put those things out. But most of our larvicides are, for the most part, really target specific to just mosquitoes, the materials that we put out.
Is there any reason, I mean, I look at this world map on the Zika virus, it just shows Mexico and portions of South America, different countries. It doesn't show it in Africa. Is this just for current?
That's for the most part current. There are small outbreaks in Africa currently, but the issue now is that it's run rampant through South America and Mexico. So there are still outbreaks of Zika in the Pacific Islands, in Southeast Asia, and in parts of Africa, but yeah, it's just more of kind of a current map associated with that. And the big concern, obviously, is we're coming into the summer, when school's out and people want to start taking vacations. We have the Olympics that are going right to Brazil, and then you're going to have all these people traveling and then coming back. And so we want to make sure that people are aware of what the risks are when they're in those places, and that they're putting on a good repellent and protecting themselves as best as they can.
Do they theorize as to why it's just in these two locations now?
Well, there's lots of theories. Again, Zika hasn't really been studied that much because it's always been considered a minor disease until recently, with the link to the microcephaly, and then of course it also has a link to what they call Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a paralysis. Right. But they think that there were outbreaks in Yap, which is in a small island in the South Pacific, and there was a big canoe race in Brazil, canoe race, right, where they brought a lot of these countries in. It was like kind of like the Olympics for canoe racing, although I guess you just have one event, right? And they brought all these people here, and that's where they think it kind of started. They also had the World Cup where you had people traveling to Brazil, and so that probably was why it took off. And then, of course, they have those species of mosquitoes. That's their most abundant mosquito, and it's everywhere. So the virus just really took off, and then now they're trying to find that link between that and microcephaly.
Thank you.
For members of the community who have ponds or something that might be able to put mosquito-eating fish in, what do they do to contact, or what do they do?
All they have to do is contact our number, 1-800-429-1022, or they can go to our website, fightthebite.net. We have what we call service request. You can fill out a form. So if it's on your own property, fill out all the form. If you know a neighbor that's got a bad pool and you don't want to get involved, you can do it anonymously. We go knock on the door. We try to take care of anything. We just want to be able to find where the mosquitoes are. We don't care about anything else. So, but they can call our number directly, or they can go to our website and get that information.
Okay, thank you.
Should someone find a dead bird or something to that effect, but should they still be contacting you about that?
Absolutely. The Dead Bird program is actually run by the state of California, but the information comes down to us. So you're calling the state of California number, and it's 188-WNV-BIRD, West Nile virus bird. You call that number, or again, you can go on our website and we have a link to it. We're starting to try to get into a mobile app where people can just take a picture and then it's tagged with the GPS and all that good stuff. We're not quite at that particular level yet, but we're working on that. And you can report that, and then we will usually try to come out and pick it up as soon as we get the report. Sometimes if it's been dead for a long time, then there's not going to be any active virus in it. So sometimes we may just call and say, well, you can just throw it away, but we want the report because we know that there's a dead bird in your thing. Now, birds can die of a lot of different things. I mean, there's lots of other causes, cats, and other things, but we definitely want to know what it is. So if it has tire tracks on it, it's okay. But if it's dead, yeah, we definitely want to know, because if we start to see a pattern in a particular neighborhood, then what we'll do is we'll send our crews out to do more surveillance and set traps and test more, and then we'll send our control crews out to start looking for other sources. So we definitely want to know, and that's a great point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Well, thank you. It was a nice
Thank you, Jerry.
presentation.
Yes, absolutely. Appreciate the effort. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to public comment.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the council on non-agenda items. Speakers may address council on any agenda item during consideration of the item. Speakers shall restrict their comments to issues that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the clerk.
And I have one speaker sheet. Catherine Silk.
evening, Council, Police Chief, City of Galt. My name is Catherine Silk, and I have been a resident of Galt since 1997. I have come to the City of Galt from South Dakota, particularly Rapid City, South Dakota, for better opportunities for my 6 sons who I raised and went to the Galt School District here, graduated, which I have one more graduating next month. I come to you today also to express my concerns for the community and the children of the court, Lanigan Court, that I live on and reside on since 2012. I come to you as well to let you know that welding without proper shelter can really damage eye vision if it's not properly taken care of. Also, too, industrial machines, and correct me if I'm wrong, belong in industrial courts. But on Lanigan Court, there is continuous air compressors, metal grinders, welders, yelling, obscenities, racial slurs. All these that are happening on this Lanigan Court while 17 children live in this cul-de-sac. Phone calls have been made to the police department, code enforcement, sergeants, councilwomen. I think I've exhausted everything that I was trying to do to protect the children of the community. There are chemical smells that come from this particular place. There are metal shavings that fly into the streets while the children are playing, riding their bikes. Now, something has to be done about this, and this is why I come to council today, because I feel that I was not heard throughout 3 years. I have case numbers, I have videotapes, I have pictures. That would fall under the category of abating the nuisance. Whether it's property owners, renters, who still have rights as renters, to be eligible to abate the nuisance of a property owner that is bringing harm, safety, and protection hazards to this community. Also, too, according to Galt Municipal Code 8.40 noise control, Galt Municipal Code 8.40.70 specific unlawful noise, sections E through G have all been committed within this residential area where children play, ride bikes, are supposed to be able to be, sheltered without all these machines and metal flying around and welding lights wide open. The thing of it is, too, is that I feel that I have been ignored. That's why I came here. As an individual, as a parent, as a community member, as a citizen, tax-paying citizen, I support all the local shops. I've been here because I raised my family here, because it's quiet. It was a nice neighborhood. But until I moved to the Lanigan Court, all these things that I have mentioned have been happening. And again, I will say, officers, crime prevention, code enforcement, Rusty Hughes, Sergeant Chris Smith is probably the only one that was really helping me. He was listening to me. He was requesting my extra patrol on Lanigan Court because of the drug sales, because of the ongoing traffic, and because of the owners that are there, and they know about everything that's going on, but yet there is no protection. There's no one holding up the Galt Municipal Code as far as the community is seen on Lanigan Court. So with that said, I have made an attempt to do social media and failed, because I now know, and excuse me for saying this, everyone covers up for everyone, is what I've noticed, and what I've heard. Even from public. You ain't gonna get nowhere. Rusty Hughes is a code enforcement. Oh, he's the code enforcement. You ain't gonna get nowhere. I've contacted.
Mrs. Silk, you'll have to wrap it up. Your time's up.
Great. So with that said, and again, thank you for the time, but for the protection and the safety and the welfare of our children for the city of Galt, I ask and I request that you please investigate this now. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any further speaker sheets. Moving on to consent calendar. Did you want to go ahead and address number 3 first before we approve it?
I will.
Okay.
Would you read the recommendation, Donna, on that particular item, please?
Adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to submit periodic applications and claims on behalf of the city related to CalCycle repayment program documents.
Okay, the reason I pulled this was more to bring to the attention the recycling of beverage containers. I think this is an important goal in our community to reach or sustain 80% recycling. So I didn't want to just pass over this without some reference to the program, hoping to keep it out in front of the public so that we will continue to do our job to recycle beverages. And that was the reason I pulled it, not so much to not allow the city manager to designate a person to apply for grants or whatever. Do we have any kind of a program that reports back on our recycling of beverages containers?
We will. If we don't.
Okay.
It will definitely report back to the council on the activity of this program, and possibly periodically get input from the council on where to spend the money. I think the money that we've received, it's about $5,000, I understand, has been used to buy recycled containers, do some containers in the parks, over the years. So it's a good program. Some reporting requirements come with the grant, so that's what we would, what you're designating the city manager or my designee, which would be Mr. Winkler, to administer the program and do the reporting requirements.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I move to approve.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Payne. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Hewer. Any further discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers. Aye. Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Okay, we pass unanimously. On the remaining consent calendar, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion. Motion by Vice Mayor Payne. We have a second by Councilmember Campion. Any further discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers.
Aye.
Mayor Cruz.
Aye. Another unanimous vote. Okay, with that, we're going to be moving G4 forward. So, we're now up to Mr. Winkler. Consider the support for the proposed supplemental transportation sales tax.
Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. I'd like to introduce Mr. Jeff Spencer. I've not actually ever met him face to face. We have communicated a little bit over this program. He is the new Sacramento Transportation Authority Executive Director. We call it STA, and that's the folks that bring us a lot of our road revenue through the Measure A supplemental sales tax program for transportation. And he's here tonight to talk about a new potential for potentially developing a ballot initiative to increase the current $0.25 by another $0.25 to accelerate some of our local transportation projects. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to make this presentation. I'm going to see if our clicker's working better. Now it is. All right. Right arrow is forward and the green button is a pointer if you need it.
All right. Honorable Mayor, council members, since about 2013, we've had a professional advisory group which is made up of the staff from all of the cities, the county, regional transit, all of the transportation entities throughout the county. And they've understood that there's the Measure A that is currently in place is not enough to take care of our needs. The needs have been outpacing The inflation is outpacing the ability to keep up with the work. And so they've actually come to a consensus and looked at operations and maintenance across the county for each city, within the county unincorporated areas, as well as with regional transit. We've also done some polling, and the recent polling shows better than 2/3 support for this additional half-cent sales tax measure that could be proposed on the November ballot. However, one of the things we heard is half-cent.
An additional half cent on top of the current
Right.
order?
Half. It's a current half. So the targeted areas for this one is to look at filling potholes, repaving streets. It's really a lot of infrastructure, a lot of deteriorating roadways and infrastructure, rebuilding our bridges and relieving the traffic that we see on many of our roads. There are capital projects as well in the expenditure plan, and they are to build an expressway between Elk Grove, Rancho Cordova, and Folsom, the Southeast Connector as it's called. There are light rail projects that will extend through Elk Grove and out to the airport. I don't think this will actually fund the whole project, but it'll get them started. It'll support light rail and bus operations, maintenance, and security. RT has had to get its house in order, and we can't just necessarily starve them. And so we've come up with is about a 70-30% split, 70% going to local roads and transit and 30% to RT. As I mentioned, with the ballot question on the polling, we see across the county better than 69%, and for the South County, we actually see better than 70% in support. As we talk about the various questions, this kind of shows you the level of support in each area, countywide as well as down here in Galton, Elk Grove area. You can see a lot of the support is in the Fix It First measures. We really need to take care of our infrastructure. Everyone recognizes that. And our economy rides on our roads. So it's very imperative to make sure that we have a sustainable economy to repair our infrastructure. So as I mentioned, it's about a 70-30 split, roads to transit. It front loads 75% of the funds into Fix It First program. The first 5 years, 75% of all funds received must go to repair and maintenance. Now, if your local roads meet a 70% pavement condition index, the city can certify that, then you can take the funds that you receive and put them towards capital projects. There's another way we build flexibility into this ordinance, and that is that with a supermajority vote, if you have an urgent need for a capital project, the city council can use their own vote to prioritize their projects. As well with RT, we are looking at replacing light rail and bus vehicles, improving their maintenance, and improving security. We reach what we call a state of good repair as detailed by the Federal Transit Administration. So this plan balances the need across all modes and all roads. It emphasizes complete streets, which is your bicycle pedestrian access. Elk Grove has a smart corridor that is going to be funded in part by this measure. It is in conformity with all air quality requirements, and it leverages the dollars from the state and federal. Those resources are dwindling. Our buying power from that, because the gas taxes haven't changed since the 1990s, have been reduced by 40% through inflation and through the reduction of the efficiency of vehicles. They basically use less gas, even though they're traveling the same amount of miles. And then when you look at the advent of electric and hybrid vehicles, they pay no tax. The electric ones don't pay any tax because they don't use fuel. So we want to attract the state and federal resources that we can, but we have to have that local match in place in order to do that. Accountability, we have input a independent oversight as a committee, the three-person committee that will do annual audits of our funds and our procedures. Again, the 5-year update, we're looking at a 2-year rolling update from each city to tell us what their pavement condition index. We want to help encourage you to bring the roads up to par. RT must be consistent with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and financial management policies that have been put in place by their board. And to go down the second bullet near the bottom, it's they must meet the ridership increase goals. Fare box recovery, that's, in other words, the money coming into the fare box to pay for their operations, and their reserve policy, because they've basically burned up their reserves, and that's why they're in such financial straits. Overview, it's going to generate about 120 million annually, or 3.6 billion over the life of the 30-year tax, and the ordinance allows for bonding. What bonding does is it allows us to bring in the capital in anticipation of the revenues over years. That capital then can be used to fix projects much sooner, which takes advantage of the future value of that dollar. If we were to wait and pay as you go, inflation would actually outpace us, and the deterioration of roads would get so bad that we would have to do a complete tear down and rebuild. So if we can just get to fixing them now, it may only need a overlay or something like that, and if we get the funds now, it actually is worth the debt service that we will pay, because that's less than the inflation 10 years from now to get to the pavement projects that would be needed at that time. So here's kind of an overall allocation, about 2.2 billion for local roads, bikes, peds, and transit. Galt share is about 35 million, or more than 35 million, and the Southeast Connector, again, you guys would probably benefit from that, 125 million. And the Capital City Freeway, that is the Business 80 route from P Street all the way out to Madison Avenue, giving you additional capacity over the American River Bridge, and that's about 200 million dedicated to that. And again, these are local funds to attract the other investments from the state and feds. Transit, again, largely operations and maintenance, vehicle replacement, et cetera, and then some capital projects, the Gold Line, the Airport Line, and Elk Road. And then, of course, paratransit, which services the entire county, about 126 million to help them. Galt projects, you can see there's your allocation. Again, picks it first, repairs, maintenance, your interchange at Walnut Avenue, and then bike, pedestrian, and Americans with Disability Act implementation. And here's kind of a first 5 years. This at 3% annual growth kind of gives you a picture of what is the anticipated revenues. And I'm going to turn it over to Steve at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer, and we'll just close with our recommendation tonight. And for this measure, and I did misspeak, it is currently a half cent, and this would be an additional half cent. I was reading a quarter cent measure earlier today from another agency that was looking at other things, so I apologize for that. For this to get on the ballot, it will require a vote by a majority of the cities. That would be at least 4 cities would have to approve the expenditure plan, and those 4 cities must collectively represent at least 50% of the incorporated population in the county. And then if that hurdle is cleared, then the County Board of Supervisors would have to approve the measure and the expenditure plan moving forward. That point would go back to STA for their board of directors, which Councilman Campion is one of our representatives on, would have to then approve putting it on the ballot for, was it November 8th, I believe? That would be the fall. And so there's process ahead. The reason that STA is moving to local agencies is to try to achieve those preliminary steps that would then allow the county and the STA board to make a final decision as to whether they should move forward. So we are supportive. We're running about $500,000 a year short of being able to meet our current maintenance needs in the city of Galt, and this would double our current availability of funds and would meet that shortfall and allow us to move forward with projects such as the Walnut Interchange. So yes, it is a tax measure, and it would add a ½ cent sales tax for every dollar spent, but it is unlike many sales taxes that go off somewhere else. These are returned to source to help us maintain our local roads and needs. So I would encourage council to consider endorsing the expenditure plan and adopting the resolution tonight that would allow STA to move forward with the question.
If I may add one more thing, all of the cities I've already presented to, let's see, Folsom, Rancho Cordova, Elk Grove, there's only been one dissent. Everybody understands the need that we have. And so this, again, is dedicated. The expenditure plan is outlined, it is locked in. Those are the projects we will be doing. It cannot be diverted to anything else.
Okay. Questions from council?
I was gonna say, I think it's important that, you know, it is fix it first, and that was the biggest complaint, I think, from those people that were polled is road conditions. And, you know, if the taxpayers are willing to, you know, impose this, then I think, the council, all councils should move forward to allow it to be placed on the ballot and let the voter make the decision.
Yeah. Any further questions?
I just want to clarify, this will not do anything to the highways that need repair. It's just local streets, correct? The highways are not included.
Correct, yeah, the first Measure A passed in 1988 was largely focused on expanding transit. The last one was about 50-50 split, and you benefited from that from your Measure A project that you have out here. But yeah, this one is kind of focused on local streets and getting to the infrastructure repairs rather than doing all capital projects.
And I have to ask this too. Measure A, when it was passed, they had a plan about how we were going to fund all these projects. And now it seems like we have a shortfall. Would you go into some detail as to what happened there?
Well, I can't go into a whole lot of detail. I've only been on the job 2 months. But I am from Sacramento, actually returning. And I know that, again, the projects before were largely capital projects, expanding capacity, building in, because we had a lot of growth, a lot of people coming from other areas, as well as internal growth. And so they had to try to stay ahead to meet the demands, the mobility demands. However, what we didn't address is a lot of the infrastructure that's been deteriorating over years. We have some that's very old. In fact, part of the discussions is to make sure there's a coordinated plan that when we go in and rebuild roads, that the utilities don't come in and dig it up right away to do their utility work. So there's going to be a lot more coordination, and that's really why I'm here and why I've taken this job, is to build that coordination across all agencies, break down those silos, and to help build the technologies. I'm an expert in intelligent transportation systems. So we look at corridor management, the sharing of information. How do we use technology to better manage our systems? And that's going to be my focus.
The other question I had was about administration.
Yes.
So we're going to be paying someone 0.3% just to oversee the program?
That's 0.3, that's 0.3% of the whole budget to oversee it for 30 years.
It sounds small, but if you figured it out, it's a lot of money. So I'm just...
Well, I only have 4 staff, and that 0.3% just covers my salary. It doesn't cover the rent, keeping the lights on, going through bonding, any of the other fees and you know, outreach, all of that stuff that goes on. That's still going to be continuing to be funded by Measure A, but this, because it is incremental, I'm going to be taking on the whole $120 million annually to manage. That's going to require certain administrative functions.
When you look in comparison to the city of Gulf's budget, you're looking at north of 80% going just for administration. So I think in comparison, it's a very nominal amount for the functions and what is accomplished through that agency. So.
Got it?
I had another question, but you made me forget what it was.
Sorry about that.
It'll come back, and I will let you. All right?
Okay.
I promise. It's no problem.
Well, in the meantime, I have a couple also. I know RT has never met their fare box recovery rates. And what guarantees are we going to have that they're going to be doing that now? I mean, I know they're going through a restructuring, but there's no guarantee to this. So you're giving them 30% of this to what end? Are we just throwing the money down a hole?
No, actually, because they have the fix it first and locks them in basically to fix their problems before they can go on to the capital projects. We understood, the professional advisory group even looked at, you have to be able to take care of what you have before you go out and build new things and take care of that too. And so this is a stopgap. It's saying you have to get to, we're going to fund projects to help you get in the state of good repair. But you have to achieve these things in order to be able to get onto your capital projects.
Okay, thank you. Other question I have, you're saying that before we can move on from Fix It First, to have the roads have to be certified. What governing body other than city council is going to be?
Your Public Works Department tells you with the pavement condition index. They do a survey of their roads, and they're able to do that. And most cities have that, as part of their plan.
So that would be sufficient certification for us to move forward. And the last one, this is a big one for me. I know we're moving forward with this. We want to get this on the ballot, and I am in favor of. My biggest concern though is the current actions being taken by the state with the VMT. And for those who aren't aware, it stands for vehicle miles traveled. How is this going to affect us as far as Measure B or son of Measure A, whatever you're going to be calling it?
It is going to be Measure B. As far as what happens in the state and their VMT tax, I don't know how that will play out, but it shouldn't affect these funds because these are a sales tax. And the sales tax are dedicated again to projects that will only repair roads and help do those expansion projects that are already detailed.
I understand that, but what you're doing now is you're asking people to pay a 0.5% sales tax increase, and then when VMT comes around, they're going to get hit really hard with that as well.
And that's where we need to be vocal to our state representatives. You know, it's going to be passed by legislature. And what's kind of unfortunate is they've diverted the funds. And that's where the problem lies. It's management of your funds. This agency has a dedicated pool of projects and has the certain accountabilities already set in place so that it's very transparent to the public, and we're going to be accountable to what we do.
Okay. Do you remember?
What?
Did you remember what you were going to ask?
Yes, I did. Okay, you're asking, or your goal is to have the cities have a 33% match on these projects?
It's a goal. We state that as a general goal because depending on where the other funds are, whether it's just state or state and federal, there's different requirements. And it's all set by Congress if it's federal funds or by the legislature if it's state. So let me give you an example. A certain transit projects have a 50-50 match requirement. Obviously, your 33 is not going to meet that, but we can leverage other soft as well as hard match dollars. Soft match being labor, other contributions, things like that. There's public-private partnerships that will be engaged in some of these. Some of the projects, when they come out, are 80% match, so we only have to come up with a 10% match, and the state matches their 10%. So it really is that flavor, and that's just kind of a benchmark.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion to adopt by Councilmember Campion and a second by Councilmember Powers. Do I have any further discussion on the matter? Being called for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne?
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers?
Aye.
Mayor Cruz?
Aye, so we have unanimous vote. Very good. Okay, moving on to scheduled matters. Mr. City Attorney, you've kind of thrown me for a loop here. You've got this listed as being moved to the meeting of June 7th, but you've just presented one of these to each one of us. Are we continuing this?
So, Mr. Mayor, staff's recommendation is the city-initiated annexation project be moved off calendar. We have some comment letters that are going to take some additional time to respond to, and we'll renotice this matter when it is ready to come back to council for action.
Very well. With that, we will move on to the Treasurer's Office. Mr. Farrell.
Thank you very much. For the Treasurer's Report ending March 2016, I just want to go through exactly what our investments are for the city. First, we have a Farmers and Merchants checking account. Second is the State of California late funds. Third is a money market account and a CD, also at Farmers and Merchants, so that's number 3 and 4. We have non-local certificates of deposit. Those are deposits that are $250,000 in spread throughout different banks throughout the United States. And lastly, we have what are called callable government agencies. Those are, say, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Federal Home Loan Bank agencies. And I just want to say that locally, at the end of March, we have approximately $7 million invested locally in Farmers and Merchants Bank. So I ask City Council for your approval in the acceptance of the Treasurer's report for March 2016.
Very good. Council, do we have any questions on this?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Powers to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hewer. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer? Aye. Councilmember Campion? Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Okay. We have 4, and I guess that'll be considered an extension. Go ahead with, is that going to include the City of Galt investment, or are you going to?
No, I'm going to talk about that separately,
All right,
because
sir.
that by government code must be discussed in a public forum,
Yes,
in a
sir.
public meeting like this. And just for the public's education, the investment policy is, say, a roadmap of how the city invests their money. The overall responsibility lies upon the city council members right here. This investment policy delegates from the council to the city treasurer for a 1-year period that the city treasurer have that responsibility to in fact invest that money and invest it in with the objective of safety first, liquidity second, making sure we can meet our obligations, and then lastly, making sure that we get as high yield as possible on those investments. Now, this year's investment policy, I had to make one change compared to last year's investment policy which you adopted. For those council members, if you look on page 5 under the authorized and suitable investments, and for the general public, this is just a list of the permittable investments that the city treasurer can make. The local agency investment fund had, and I say use the word had, a limit of $50 million that an agency could invest. Now it has been moved up to $65 million. This is a moot point for the city of Galt because we don't have anywhere close near this amount. So, but I had to still make that change in the investment policy. And all investments, I will say, have a maximum maturity of 5 years. That's also by government code. And there are no other changes to this year's policy. So if you have any questions, please ask. Otherwise, I ask for its adoption to this roadmap for the next fiscal year, which is year 2016 to 2017.
Very good. Any discussion from council?
No.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hewer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Powers. Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sean. Nice to see you.
See you in a quarter.
Moving on to the city attorney's office, Liberty Ranch Pre-Annexation and Development Agreement. Mr. Rudolph.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. At the city council meeting on May 3rd, the city council introduced the ordinance approving the pre-annexation and development agreement for the Liberty Ranch portion of the Eastview Specific Plan area. It's an agreement between the developer, Liberty Ranch LLC, and the city for the Eastview Specific Plan project area. This item is presented for adoption this evening, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Council, do we have questions?
I don't have any questions. However, I would still put forth an amendment to the code, to the ordinance, particularly section 4.4.4.2 wastewater. We discussed this at the last meeting, and after rereading it several times, because there was confusion amongst staff and as well as the public, I believe, what I would like to see accomplished, and what this section says is that the developer would be able to get a will-serve letter and reserve capacity at the wastewater treatment plant if connection fees are paid for each unit or village within a phase of the project. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, although it is unique and we've never done that in the past. The problem that I have is that after the filing of a phase final map and the payment of at least 30% of the fees, then he would get the ability to have a will-serve letter for the balance of the project in that phase. for a period of 2 years. I believe the last sentence of that paragraph should be struck and would make a motion to that effect.
Okay, I have a motion to, Mr. City Attorney, you had something to say? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Campion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Powers. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, before you vote on the item, I just want to point out that if the motion to amend is passed, it would require the reintroduction of this ordinance at this time, and then we would bring it back for adoption at the next meeting. And what I understand the motion to be, just for clarification, is that the last sentence would be stricken from 4442.
That's correct. It starts out with "in addition upon the filing of."
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no further discussion. Then call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? No. Councilmember Hewer? Aye. Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
No. It will pass, the amendment will pass 3-2, so it will be brought back at next, correct?
Right, so so basically, the effect of that motion is to reintroduce the ordinance with adopting the development agreement with that amendment, and we'll be back at the next meeting for adoption with that amendment.
So we don't need a motion for that, to reintroduce it?
No, so the effect of the my understanding of the motion was to essentially reintroduce the ordinance with that amendment.
If it can't be amended at this time, that would be the intent.
So the amendment, well, why don't just in order to avoid any ambiguity, why don't we entertain a motion at this point to reintroduce ordinance number 201-1605, approving the pre-annexation development agreement by and between the City of Galt and Liberty Ranch, as amended, with the amendment to 444.2, waive further reading and continue the matter to the next City Council meeting for adoption.
So moved.
Could you repeat that?
So the motion would be to reintroduce ordinance number 201-1605, approving the pre-annexation and development agreement by and between the City of Galt and Liberty Ranch LLC, incorporating the amendment to section 4442, which deleted the last sentence, waive further reading of the ordinance and continue the matter to the next regular meeting for adoption.
Now we have a motion by Councilmember Hewer. Do I have a second?
It presents a fundamental problem for me, because I'm not going to vote in the entirety of this ordinance. So therefore, I have to vote no at this point, but I still would like to see the amendment done. So if it requires us to re-advertise and bring it back in that format, I would prefer to see it done that way, unless I'll vote no and see how the vote goes.
Okay, well, I still have an open motion. Do I have a second? Without a second, it dies.
I'm a little confused.
What?
If it dies, then we have no.
We have nothing.
There is no ordinance.
Say that again, please.
If it dies for lack of a second, we have no motion on this ordinance. Does the ordinance die then?
That's correct. If there's not a motion,
So, just for discussion first, if we direct staff to rewrite section 4.4.4.2 as proposed, and then bring it back, that would be my motion.
My motion is to accept the ordinance with that amendment made. To approve that ordinance, bring it back to us, waive the reading, bring it back to us at the next meeting so we can adopt it. Otherwise, what you're suggesting is
Okay.
that we wait until the next meeting to bring it back again, and then another
So it would be
meeting to
introduced
adopt.
with this amendment. Okay, I get it.
We said with the amendment.
Okay, Then I would, reverse my
We
vote.
agreed to the
And it would be yes.
We got
It
a
would be
majority
three
vote on
yeses.
the amendment. I agree to the amendment.
Okay, so I have a,
I'll make a motion again to adopt and to.
So the motion was to reintroduce ordinance number 201605, approving the pre-annexation development agreement signed between the city and Liberty Ranch LLC, incorporating the amendment to section 4442, which deleted the last sentence of that section. Wait for the reading of the ordinance and continue to the next regular meeting for adoption.
Thank you. So moved.
Second.
motion by Councilmember Hewer, second by Councilmember Campion. Do we have any further discussion on the matter?
No.
Call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Hewer.
Aye.
Councilmember Campion.
Aye.
Councilmember Powers. Aye. Mayor Cruz.
Aye, so will be brought back to the next council meeting, 5-0 vote. All right, moving on to Mr. Rudolph again, egg-laying chicken ordinance.
Yes, Mayor and council members, in response to public testimony at a council meeting on April 19th, the city council directed that an item be placed on a future agenda to consider whether to amend the municipal code to allow the keeping of egg-laying chickens. The municipal code currently provides that no turkeys, geese, chickens, roosters, ducks, or other fowl shall be kept or maintained in the city. This is an item that the city council considered about 4 years ago and directed the preparation of an ordinance at that time. The ordinance that came forward back in 2012 would have allowed for the keeping of 4 or fewer egg-laying chickens on a parcel improved with a detached single-family dwelling, purely for home consumption and not for sale or other commercial purposes. There were some other provisions incorporated into this ordinance relating to the health and sanitation of the keeping of the birds on the property and out of respect for neighboring properties. Since this was an amendment to the city zoning code, it went to the Planning Commission first. Planning Commission voted by a vote of 4-0 against the adoption of the ordinance, and when it came back to the city council, the matter was dropped at that time. If after deliberation this evening the city council desires to proceed with an ordinance, I'd request that you provide some guidance as to the terms of that ordinance. I will then prepare the ordinance and then take it through the Planning Commission for the recommendation and then back to the City Council for adoption. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Council, question?
No comment?
Comment?
Okay, I personally see no reason to bring it back. We had a really extensive couple of meetings on it 4 years ago, but it was 4 years ago. I think that most of the people were against it. I still am. So I don't see any reason to bring it back. And that's my thought on it.
Okay.
Don't we have someone that would like to explain what this is?
I have a PowerPoint about some of the benefits.
I put together a PowerPoint with just a few of the benefits of
What-
chickens.
What's your name?
Please.
What's your name?
My name is Elena Crandall.
Okay, Elena.
And so this is something that I've made a lot of new friends actually who actually support this, and we've actually got a great following, of people that desire to keep hens in their backyard, purely for home consumption and purely hens only, no roosters. Thank you. And it used to be that the federal government desired for everybody to keep hens in their backyard. Their saying was, in a time of peace, it's a profitable recreation, and in a time of war, it's a patriotic duty. So it's your duty to keep hens to support your family. And one chicken can do many, many things in your garden. It can turn 10 pounds of your food waste, so the ends of your lettuce, your celery, the tops to your tomatoes, anything like that. It can turn that all into eggs that you feed your family. It can debug your property. It helps with gardening. It helps with turning the soil, compost piles, anything like that they're really good at. It levels mulch, and they can actually break the life cycle of a pest in less than an hour. There's actually, besides the benefits of just the taste of fresh eggs, there's actually a nutritional benefit to having eggs that have been raised in your own backyard. So one of the biggest things, there's actually an increase in vitamins, an increase in omega-3s, and then the cholesterol and the fats are actually reduced in eggs that have been raised farm fresh. And not only that, the conditioner is much better for the chickens. A lot of the chickens, I mean, I know it's been in the news a lot lately, but a lot of the chickens are raised in little cages where they're not given a right to forage or even stretch their wings or legs. They're there purely to produce eggs that go to the grocery store. And then, as soon as their production rate drops, they're done. So chickens are hardworking. They help in the garden with compost, with bugs, with everything. They create fertilizer with their feces is high in nitrogen. So when you're composted correctly, it's very good for the garden. Hens are friendly and they're very low maintenance. After the initial fee of setting up your coop, they're very low maintenance and they're very easy. And if cleaned properly, there's not a smell, and with hens, there's no noise. They're self-sustaining, and they help you self-sustain your family, which is a growing trend lately, especially with farm to fork and everything. It's good as a teaching tool to help children learn about responsibility, where their food comes from, because I've worked in the schools in the city of Galt, and many of the children have no idea where their milk and eggs come from. So it can benefit in just exposing children just to basic where their food comes from. It can even teach them about reproduction, what we're eating, and then pest control. It can reduce the amount of chemical sprays because they're eating a lot of the bugs and breaking that life cycle. So pitcher bugs, spiders, anything like that, they'll consume. And 2 of our sister cities have approved hens. The city of Lodi used to allow 3 hens kept in a coop in the backyard. 2 years ago, they increased it to allow 5 hens for non-commercial consumption, and they have all the same restrictions. They must be in backyard enclosures, well-maintained, things like that. And I contacted their animal control officer, and he said once they legalized hens, their complaints about hens completely ceased. They have none. No complaints of roosters and nothing like that. The city of Elk Grove just last year amended their hen keeping ordinance because they used to allow 4 hens kept in the coop so many feet from the property line. It was changed last year. They allowed 6 hens cooped 5 feet from the fence, or they allowed 12 free-range hens as long as they're always 40 feet from the fence, from the property line with a fence or some other kind of restriction. So they can't get the... And I contacted their city control officer as well that handled the animal complaints. And they said the same thing. Once the chickens were legalized, they had no complaints completely. Lastly, I contacted Rusty about the chicken complaints that the city of Galt has had. He said of the 100 to 120 calls they get a year, 99% of those are about roosters. So unfortunately, I don't want a rooster next to me, so I can get that. He said the last 1% is typically neighbors that are feuding, and they find out, oh, you've got backyard chickens, and then they call. Not because it was a noise problem or a smell problem or anything like that, purely for, being mean. So with that, I'll ask if you have any other questions for me, or any other concerns about keeping hens.
Elena, you shared a lot of reasons why you think we should allow hens in the city limits. And I know it is a trend now, but why do you feel strongly about it?
I have small children, and so for me, I like to garden. I like to teach them where their food comes from, and for me, controlling what they consume is very important. I don't know where those eggs are coming from, what those chickens have, I want to teach my children respect for the food that they consume and how it was made, and keep them healthy and show them how to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions here?
So, I had hens growing up in an urban environment, so I actually understand that you can do it and there is no sanitary problem as long as people are being responsible. I get the idea of wanting fresh eggs. I currently buy my fresh eggs from Kingwood Farms right outside of town for the exact reasons that you discussed. And, you know, I've been into his chicken coop, which is much larger than what you're discussing because he's in the county. And, there's no smell, there's no sanitary problem. I mean, their chickens are very well cared for. I personally think that we should be allowed to. I thought it was a bad decision 4 years ago when we said that you know, people couldn't have hens in their backyard. So I actually am fully in favor of it, totally understand that, you know, in this day and age of organic gardening and people doing gardens and wanting to be concerned about what their children eat and what their family eats, that it's a great way for families to control that and to do it in a responsible way. And we really are a rural urban community, and I think that if communities that are much more urban than we are can do it, I think that we should be able to.
Thank you.
And I mean no disrespect to you, but I was here the other time, and you've given all the pros. There were a lot of people that were against it, and the cons were, and one of the big cons were from the city, that there was not enough people to make sure that there was compliance. And although you think that people are going to keep the place clean, you're not going to guarantee everyone's going to keep it and great the way you think it's going to be done. And so that's why, you know, 4 years ago when I listened to it and the planning commission listened to it and we all decided no, I think that most of those reasons still stand.
Well, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's a lot like anyone who owns an animal. If they're kept as a pet, they're going to take very, very good care of it because, you know, my dog is a part of my family. But there are always going to be people that are going to use the privilege and they're going to take advantage.
And there's a lot of people that have pets that don't treat the pets the way they're supposed to. And trust me, from experience, it's hard to get anybody out to comply with a lot of these ordinances. We just don't have the personnel or the wherewithal to go out and make sure everybody that has chickens in their backyards comply. And another thing that my problem is, a lot of the people in this city have very small backyards.
Correct.
And so there is, it's very close to your neighbors, and those were some of the thoughts we had.
All right, a lot of the cities that I've found have proposed limits based on lot size and home size. And I'd be happy to share some of those with you. I don't have them with me today. But as long as the lot size is, say, 5,000 feet or 4,500 to 6,000 square feet, then they allow 4 hens. If it's larger than 5,000 feet to 8,000 feet, they allow 6,000 hens, and it kind of goes up.
6 hens, not 6,000.
But, you know, that's another way of who's going to go out and
Correct.
look at who has what house and how many chickens you're going to have. And
right.
And I think you're probably right that, you know, the 99% are going to do exactly what you say. It's the 1% that caused the problem, and that becomes the enforcement nightmare on the block, who absolutely do not pay attention. And the problem there is, how do you resolve it? Well, you can go after that person, but it becomes extremely difficult, time-consuming, and we have one code enforcement officer in the city. I'm not completely opposed to it, but I would want to see, if there is a measure to come forward, that it have a mechanism in there where it would be very easy to have those chickens removed. I mean, and that's the only way. Because if there's an abuse, the abuse needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
And absent that, I would be hesitant to move forward to allow chickens. I don't know where the line gets drawn after that. I know that potbelly pigs were very popular years ago, and those are very destructive in people's yards and neighbors' yards because they will go next door underneath the fence. So I mean, I'm open but guarded.
well, it's an enforcement issue again.
It is.
It's a major enforcement issue.
Well, we can say that about dogs and cats too, and
Right. Well, that's
sat
what I
here and
did say
listened to
that.
people say that we should have unlimited number of cats in people's homes. I didn't agree with that.
I don't agree.
You guys went forward with the unlimited cats thing.
No, we didn't. 4 cats.
Okay, 4.
We didn't.
Well, I think that we live in a community and you have neighbors, and sometimes you're gonna get along and sometimes you're not, but that doesn't mean that you can't, try and have your liberties as well on your property. And I agree, I'm gonna say this and you guys are gonna smack me, but, at the community garden that, we have, that the city has, we have children that come out from the Head Start school as well as, 4-H and some of the others, and it's just amazing how many of them didn't realize where their food came from, and they are so excited about it. So I think it would be a good thing. I think we're in the position where we can give it a try, and I think we should give liberty wherever we think we can, especially with our property. So I would support it.
Okay. Well, 4 years ago, I did ask for this to be brought forward, and I still feel very strongly about it, if it's properly governed. And I would like to see it brought back again. So do we need a motion to bring it forward, or do you just need a general consensus?
I appreciate a motion directing staff to prepare an ordinance for submission to the planning commission and then back to the council. If you want to provide any parameters in that motion, that would be helpful. If you're not inclined to do so, what I would do is I would look at the Lodi and Elk Grove ordinances. I would use one as a resource and do our best shot at bringing something forward for your consideration.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hewer and a second by Vice Mayor Payne. Do I have any further discussion on this? And call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
I'm open to, yes.
Councilmember Powers?
No.
And Mayor Cruz?
Aye. So you have a 4-1 vote. Please go forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Mr. Winkler.
So, I know it's warm in here, I apologize, I've reached out to my staff to see if we can figure out what's going on with the AC, but I've yet to get a response.
Can I just say, I think it's on a timer, so can you make sure from now on Tuesday nights that they set the timer for later to go off?
Check
please?
it, although it hasn't been a problem in the past, so
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure what's different tonight. But we'll look into it.
Maybe it's broken again.
I do apologize, we have had our challenges with the City Hall HVAC system. So this item is to present the council with an introductory overview of the requirements of what has come to be known as the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And I personally believe that this legislation will be among the most important policy issues facing the city in the next several years. I'll stop short of saying it will be the most important, but I think it will be in the top 3 because it's going to affect how we go forward with sustainable groundwater management. So what is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act? It's a group of 3 bills that were passed by the legislature in 2014 and were signed in September by the governor. Collectively, these bills provide the framework for developing groundwater accountability and developing plans for achieving groundwater basin sustainability over the next 25 years. Specific requirements in the bills are that groundwater sustainability agencies be formed no later than next June of 2017, which is about 14 months out. Further, that the groundwater sustainability plans be developed for the underlying basin that we are in, we'll talk more about that in a little bit, within 5 years thereafter, and actually within 7 years, and that by 2022 would be that 7-year window for our basin, which is a medium priority, basin, and in the state's interpretation, and that within 20 years thereafter, that we would have achieved sustainability. What the acts do not do is change any of the existing laws regarding groundwater rights, and that's explicitly stated in those bills. So then, what is SGMA's purpose? Well, it is, the stated purpose is to put in place protections that prevent further permanent damage to existing groundwater aquifers within California. It provides accountability provisions that are intended to ensure that substantive progress is made to correct and reverse existing long-term overdraft conditions where they exist, and to provide local agencies with the authority to develop and implement sustainability plans for their underlying basins. However, if local agencies fail to accept this responsibility or to meet the Act's requirements, then the state is authorized to step in and assume control over management of the groundwater basins in those areas where agencies have failed to do so. And the Act provides a definition for sustainability, and it's shown at the bottom of this slide. And the emphasis is on long-term management in a manner that doesn't cause undesirable results. Well, then that raises the next question. So what is an undesirable result? And the Act actually defines what they mean, and it is a chronic lowering of groundwater levels, meaning chronic, repetitive, and long-term, other than transitional changes. And it is also, and it uses the term significant and unreasonable multiple times for each of the following: reductions in groundwater use, significant and unreasonable seawater intrusion, degradation of water quality, land subsidence, or adverse impacts on beneficial uses due to surface water depletion. So, okay, we've got 14 months to decide whether we want to participate in or become a groundwater sustainability agency. So what is that all about? Well, a GSA can be any local agency or combination of agencies with responsibility for either water supply or water management or land use authority. So clearly the City of Galt has responsibility for both water supply and land use. So we could choose to stand alone, or we could choose to team up with other agencies in our basin to become or form an entity, a JPA, a joint use, some kind of an MOU that would be formalized to develop a groundwater sustainability plan for our underlying groundwater basin. We're actually in the Cosumnes subbasin. We'll give you a map in just a minute. And then the agency must be willing to implement and enforce the plan. And at a minimum, the plans that are developed must consider the interest of all beneficial users and uses, must identify measurable objectives for achieving sustainability within 20 years, and develop a physical description of the basin or subbasin, and that must include at a minimum identifying the groundwater levels in the basin, identifying the water quality of the groundwater basin, identifying the extent and risk of current or future subsidence, ground level drops due to water extraction, and lastly, groundwater and surface water interaction. So the authorities are actually, the Act gives whoever the GSAs are formed, gives them special authorities under these acts, but with those authorities come responsibilities. And it's important to focus on what those requirements would be. A GSA can be, again, any, I'm sorry, I need to turn my page. They are required to conduct water use investigations to determine and establish what is the safe, sustainable yield for the groundwater in the basin for which they've formed the GSA, to measure and limit groundwater extraction to sustainable levels, and to impose, we are allowed to impose fees for groundwater management, but most importantly will be to enforce the terms of whatever groundwater sustainability plan that is developed. So let's talk a little bit about the Cosumnes subbasin. In yellow is the north boundary of our current basin, and it extends and follows more or less the county line to the east. It actually goes into Amador County a little ways, and then follows the McCollum River down and back to its confluence with the northerly boundary is the Cosumnes River. Couple things to note is that this map or pictorial shows an area going beyond our actual subbasin. That is a boundary change proposal that's been floated by the Omechumney Hartnell Water Agency. And also in darker red here, you see an area that is a carve-out, and that is a proposal to move the boundary from the McCollum River up to Dry Creek and to this county line. And we've actually registered some concerns with DWR over that particular proposal by San Joaquin County interests because we're not sure that's in the best interest of our basin. But that kind of gives you the geographic extent. Below us is the San Joaquin subbasin, or a portion of it. Above us, up to Elk Grove, is the South American subbasin. Elk Grove is in a different subbasin than we are, as are Lodi. So how does Galt fit into this? Well, as you can see, we are right here on the very sort of southwest corner of the basin, which is shown in blue. And we are a very small piece of the footprint of our basin. We share it with the Galt Irrigation District, the Clay Water District, with the Omechumney Hartnell Water District, and a lot of that is also overlain by the Slough House Resource Conservation District. So these are the other players that, several of which, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. Several of which have already filed notice of intent to become their own GSA. You can only form a GSA for your jurisdictional boundary unless you join with other groups to form a larger area that would be a subset of the joint group of agencies. So we have been talking over the past year plus, since the bills were kind of come into definition, with a number of agencies that you see here, and many of the lower agencies listed are part of the Southeast Sacramento County Agricultural Water Authority. We've actually floated and worked with some groups as to the possibility of Galt and the county perhaps joining that Southeast Sacramento Agricultural Water Authority. That really hasn't got traction because that's an ag water group, and they're a little concerned about mixing municipal water requirements in with that. We're getting traction with Galt Irrigation District and the county as to possibly, I'm going to back up real quick, possibly forming a collective area down here between Galt Irrigation District, which is on both sides of the city in sort of medium blue, and the county's unrepresented area, and then add City of Galt. And we were looking at the possibility of forming a GSA jointly for that area. I got a phone call this past Thursday after we prepared this presentation, and from a representative of the Galt Irrigation District indicating that their board has given staff direction to go ahead and file for their own independent GSA that would be part of just their district footprint. So without the Galt Irrigation District, then it would just be the City of Galt and the county, and we have only touched that one small part there as far as commonality, and now it would be strictly urban water versus very rural water without any organized districts. And I'm not terribly sure that would be a real good governance fit for us. So we have been coordinating and talking with others. Clay Water District has decided to form their own agency. Omechumney Hartnell is also moving that direction. Slough House Resource Conservation District has indicated they intend to file for status as their own GSA. And Sacramento County, under the legislation, counties by default, if nobody else forms, then the white space, areas that aren't covered in the basin by another GSA, the county becomes the default GSA, unless they choose to ask for relief, and then the state would become the person who would start setting groundwater rules within our basin. So there are three fundamental options. A fourth one, I suppose, would be do nothing and just let the county or the state decide Galt State. I don't recommend that. We're talking about joining with others. Those sort of potential collaborative parties have sort of all opted out, and so there aren't many people left to join with in a multi-jurisdictional setting. Or we could choose to do what the others in our sub-basin have chosen to do, and that's file for the Galt city limits to be our own groundwater sustainability agency, irrespective of how many GSAs are formed in the basin. There still needs to be a unifying plan, a groundwater sustainability plan for the entire sub-basin. Now, it can be multiple plans, but they have to be compatible with similar assumptions as to sustainable yield and where the water's coming from and who has a right to it. And I was sort of tongue-in-cheek kidding with the city manager and city attorney that what this really should be titled isn't the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, but probably the Full Employment Act for consultants in the first 5 years, and then the Full Employment Act for attorneys for the 20 years following, because no doubt there are going to be quite a bit of turf wars and other things. But the bottom line is, at this point, we're looking for guidance, so we do have a meeting Friday with the San Joaquin County interests that are looking to do a boundary change. And if the council has strong feelings before we make commitments or decide not to join with others, we're looking for your comfort level, and if council wanted to appoint some kind of a subcommittee to serve with us and help us in going to these meetings, we certainly would welcome any input the council would like to have. But our current thinking would be that perhaps, and there's no rush, we have 14 months, nobody else can trump us except the county because we don't overlap with any of those other agencies. So we're in no rush for judgment tonight, but would welcome any input and questions the council might have about how we move forward.
Council?
I do have a question as it relates to the San Joaquin sub-basin moving north. I mean, is this just their desire, or is this based on some scientific research that shows that that's not part of our basin?
Well, they have filed a basin boundary request with the Department of Water Resources. That then gave the city 30 days, and other agencies 30 days to comment. We didn't actually get that till 11 days after the 30-day period had started, so we had to meet with some of our partners. We had some hurry-up meetings with the other agencies and had some technical discussions and had some great concerns. The McCollum River is a major source of recharge for our aquifer, as are the foothills in Amador County. And if you just arbitrarily chop off the recharge area from the McCollum or cut off the avenue from our basin, then okay, are they going to claim that water? How are we going to figure out the boundaries? And part of the fundamental underlying purpose was to keep this within true hydrogeologic groundwater basins. And if council's interested, we can share our comment letter that we did send to the state. That's stimulated the agencies to the south of us to call for a meeting with us and the other agencies that are concerned in our basin to hear our concerns and explain what their thinking was. In their application, we saw very little technical information that would warrant carving that out, and we called them on it because they didn't.
I'd be interested in getting a copy of the letter. I don't know about the rest of the council.
I as well.
We'll forward it to council.
So it doesn't look like we've really got a partner to go with except the county, and we have very dissimilar interests. So I don't know how this management plan would really work, because you'd be talking about two different types of development, essentially, or service requirements. I mean, you've got ag and some residential in the county, and then you would have urban uses, maybe some chickens. But, I mean, generally, they're completely different. I mean, am I missing something here?
No, and that's why at this point, when we sort of lose the coalescence of an area that might make sense to join forces, at this point, I feel the interests are dissimilar enough that I don't think, forgive me for speaking for you, but if I was sitting there, I wouldn't want to be governing unincorporated private wells and ag wells, and I don't think we want the county governing the city's water system.
Right.
And so it would seem like probably that doing our own thing at this point as an agency would make sense, but I would strongly encourage that we participate in a joint approach to the basin plans, because those are going to have to be compatible, they're going to be expensive, and I think all of the agencies are generally in agreement at the staff level that we need to get together, jointly select consultants, jointly select teams to work on the technical aspects so that we have a unifying plan that we can all live with.
So we'd come back with an MOU or something, or JPA for all of the jurisdictions and to outline what the responsibilities would be?
The law doesn't set the process forward, so it would be kind of up to us locally, but once multiple GSAs have been noticed, then we'd have to do a public hearing and bring it back to council to actually do that notification as a prerequisite for filing with DWR, and again, we have 14 months to carry that out. Then we have 5 years to work with the other GSAs to figure out the path forward, but by the end of 5 years, we will have to have submitted either a single plan for the entire sub-basin or multiple plans, maybe a north plan and a south plan would be an example of how you could split it up, but they would still have to be compatible with each other.
Well, it doesn't make sense to me that we don't work together with the other people that have interests within the basin, I mean, within our area, to have everybody doing this. It surprises me that the other jurisdictional entities don't want to join together. I mean, it's the water wars begin, right? I mean, that's what this is, right? Now we're going to fight over the groundwater. And at some point, I would think that we need to work together to do that. And it's really, the more agencies that are developed, the more government gets bigger, and the more and the cost goes up. And, you know, as you said, the consultants, everybody has their own consultant. I'm really, really disappointed to hear that there's not more of a cooperation of all of the jurisdictional agencies that get water from this basin, and that there isn't more of a need to work together. I mean, that said and done, if nobody's going to work with us, then we need to protect ourselves by forming our own agency.
Based on participating in some of the meetings with some of their board members showing up, as I kind of sat in on several meetings of some of these other agencies as they were talking about this, I think initially there was some feeling that we ought to get together and do this together, but I think some of these bullets scared them from a governance standpoint, and well, who's going to decide what the limit of extraction is for either the districts or cities or farmers' wells, and who's going to enforce that, who's going to go on their property to inspect and measure. And I think the concern was having outsiders telling the constituents of a given district what they could or couldn't do, and the district felt like they would be in the best position to know what their constituencies' needs were and how to approach them and how to involve them. That's my guess as to why they kind of fearing bigger government.
But Steve, we don't join together and we don't work together. The state will come in, and then we end up with the problems that we have now, about state agencies continually telling local jurisdictions what they're going to do.
Actually,
and imposing all of this.
The state would only step in if nobody wanted to do the GSA.
Well, yeah, and if nobody can come to an agreement.
Now, actually, the Act allows and encourages multiple agencies to take sort of control of their own destiny, but then the plan that's developed that everybody has to live with and enforce, and the duties and responsibilities that the plan will detail, will still have to be carried out. It's just who's going to carry them out.
So then it would break down to, the individual agency would be the enforcement arm for that particular area, geographic area, but you have to have a larger plan that everyone has to follow, is the way I understand. Is that correct, Steve? Similar?
Yeah, let me give you an example. Let's say that the sustainable plan was that Galt needed to limit its total annual water use to X million gallons, or X hundreds of thousands of acre feet. And we get into a time of drought, and things are not doing well for the basin. then we would have to have rules, conservation orders, stage 3 water alerts, some of the things we've been living for the last 2 years. But we would be deciding how to achieve that, whatever that numeric value for the city of Galt is, and we would have some control over that destiny of deciding what's going to work for Galt. And what works for Galt might be different than what works for a farmer who has permanent crops. It might be different than a farmer who has temporary crops.
Of course, we get no funding to set up these agencies and to administer an agency and to never mandate.
We're allowed to establish fees, and there is several tens of millions of dollars earmarked to facilitate and help agencies, and you can apply for grants to get assistance, particularly smaller agencies that don't have the sophisticated staff, and I would count ourselves as a small agency, we just don't have the staff to chase this. They're not 100%, they're typically 50-50 grants and lots of hoops to be jumped through, but there is some assistance available in forming and developing the plan, not so much to carry out the ongoing administration of the plan.
It seems like the very nature of water with the aquifers and everything, it will require that we work outside of just Galt, that we are going to need to work with the other districts.
Again, I think at the basin plan is what's going to pull us all together, but I think a number of the other agencies are concerned with losing governance control over what's going on in their backyard. And so we have the same question to council is, how do you feel about that? County is willing to partner. We were a little disappointed that Galt Irrigation District sort of backed away from the proposal because we thought it would make a nice little area in the southwest corner of the county that would make some sense, but there being a big chunk of the area we were looking at, probably just half, it starts to look a little different with just us in the county.
Sounds like you're going to really have to have some sit-down talking and reassure those that need irrigation water that there's going to be a way that we can work it out, just like with SACOG, for example. We have, 6 counties in SACOG, and somehow they managed to sit at the table and work things out. Anyway.
I have a question for you, Steve. I see that the consumer sub-basin is what the area is designed, but I'm asking a question as far as what aquifers are affected by this.
All aquifers, groundwater in general, anything below the surface of the ground, including any interconnection with surface waters. As you probably know, the Cosumnes River tends to go dry when it's not flood season. And as you pump groundwater, it's one of those rivers that doesn't have any dams and storage. And historically, before we started pumping over the last 150 years, the river tended to run year-round. But in that it's a recharge source for our basin and the one to the north, as we pump and pull water away, river levels have dropped, and it tends to go dry during non-wet years.
Well, here's my thought on this. Right now, we're currently drawing from the shallows of the aquifers, but the majority of our water is coming from the deep aquifer, the deep wells we have, with our ultimate goal being sinking more wells into that aquifer, correct?
That's correct. The deep wells are serving the city well.
So I guess my issue here is, if we're the only ones in that aquifer, how do we have a JPA regulate that, saying, Galt, you can't use your deep water wells except for this XYZ period of time? That's where my issue's coming from. I understand the shallow aquifer, no issue there. We all need to save that water as best as possible, otherwise we're going to have the same problem San Joaquin's having with the subsidence. I don't see how our city should be penalized for spending the money and having the foresight to sink those deeper wells.
In the short term, it's a plus side to have the only straws in the aquifer, and that'll help go to sustainability, and we're not necessarily competing with an upper level that may be less sustainable, but the plan is looking for 20-year outlook. As others realize there's trouble with the shallow, then they're going to want to drill deeper straws too. So we need a plan that addresses all of those tricky water quality aquifers.
Well, I don't have an issue with that. I just have an issue with other people telling us what we can and can't do with it. I'm sorry. I'm being selfish for Galt at this point. So, I know.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing that'll,
It'll end up messing us up.
Sort of thing that'll end up costing taxpayers a huge amount of money.
So,
Right, because everybody's gonna protect their interests and battle it out in reality.
right. And how effective were they ever gonna be?
yeah,
But it sounds like we almost have to move forward with trying to develop a GSA if there's no one, if the other agencies aren't willing to partner.
Yeah, unless you think the county's still willing to talk to us, but I was speaking with the county Department of Water Resources representative today, and, you know, we were kind of talking through the issue, and he said, yeah, he was very disappointed that the Galt Irrigation District decided that it wasn't in their best interest to be a collaborative group. But with that being the case, even the county says, you know, probably we're pretty separate in our needs and in our geography and in the use of water, that it's probably not necessarily a marriage made in heaven.
a little further south. So, council, what's your pleasure here? What do you suggest? Do we need a motion to this effect, or just general consensus on it?
I think we need to study the issue.
And no actions required. We are continuing to meet and talk, so if you have some strong feelings on go alone or work harder to build a coalition, we're looking for that kind of guidance.
I think we should work cooperatively to the extent that the other agencies would like. But at this point, I don't know that it'd be necessary to try and join agencies at this point because of the dissimilarities. I think in the end, everybody will have to come together when the overall plan's put together, and I think that's the important part. I'm more concerned about San Joaquin County proposing an amendment to the basin. That concerns me more, at least today, as part of this staff report, and certainly hope that I can't see any benefit to this city or to Galt ID or any of the others by having this thing changed, not even knowing what all the ramifications are of a boundary line change like this. I don't know, it just doesn't sound right.
I would agree, and hence our comments of concerns to DWR. I wasn't time to bring that to council.
Yeah.
We need to meet a comment deadline, so I will circulate our letter of concern through the city manager's office, and other agencies in our area had similar concerns.
Yeah, I appreciated your comments. I mean, I read your comments that you strongly worded. This is good. I agree with it.
Okay.
So what else do you need from us?
I think I'm hearing that while we would like to cooperate, that it may not be feasible, and so we'll keep you posted. We're not in any rush to judgment here. We will need to, at some point, notice a public hearing to formally take a motion to form our own or notify the state that we wish to be. We'll probably bring that back to you after a couple of months and see how the dust settles with some of the other agencies.
Okay.
Councilman Campion, we need to oppose that.
Yeah.
We're on record with that, and got a meeting set up with Friday to hear where they're coming from and let them hear firsthand what our concerns are, and we're being joined by some of the other districts that commented also.
All right.
Did Galt ID take a position on the proposed boundary line?
There were 4 or 5 agencies that commented, and I don't have them memorized.
Okay.
I had to go on the state website to see who else commented, but several of our group did.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on to city clerk's report. 2016 general municipal election.
Last item on the agenda, yay. Adoption of the resolution calling for a general municipal election and requesting consolidation with the statewide election with Sacramento County. The resolution also has a filing fee of $25, which is set by the Galt Municipal Code. There are a couple areas in the resolution where city council has discretion. One of them is the word count for the optional candidate statement. Staff's recommending 200 words, but you have a word limit between 200 and 400 words. Also, the registrar of voters has asked us to include a method by which a winner of a tie vote would be determined, and staff is recommending a runoff election, but council does have the discretion to select an alternative method. All other election services are outlined in the memorandum of understanding with Sacramento County, which was approved back in March. So, are there any questions? No?
Works for me.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Councilmember Campion, second by Councilmember Hewer. If we have no further discussion, call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Payne? Aye. Councilmember Hewer?
Aye.
Councilmember Campion?
Aye.
Councilmember Powers? Aye. Mayor Cruz?
Aye. Unanimous vote. All right, we're winding down. Comments by staff. We'll start over here. Emily, anything? Pete? Chris? Armando? Chief?
Two things real quick. We swore in a new dispatcher today, Crystal Curry, so we're really pleased with her. And then secondly, the media has given us a lot of attention about the German Shepherd that was on Highway 99, and I'd just like to publicly praise our staff for what an amazing job they did in rescuing that sweet dog, and hopefully we're going to find the owners. The intention of contacting the media was because we have to assume that there's a kid out there that's missing their dog, so hopefully they come forward. So.
Outstanding. Eugene?
I have two items, Mayor, council members. With the resignation of Mr. Stewart, today I appointed Chris Arias as our interim community development director. I'm very pleased that he accepted the appointment, and we're looking forward to working with him on our management team. So thank you, Chris. And
congratulations.
Yeah. The second item, a quick update on the Delta College, and we've been in contact with Kathy Roach. It looks like the Delta College Board, and these dates are tentative, so due to change. But as of right now, it sounds like they will be having a workshop on the Liberty Road site on the July 19th meeting, and then the board meeting and staff would be asking for direction on the Liberty Road site probably at their September 20th meeting. And so there's a couple of meetings that we're kind of keeping an eye on. We may have to adjust our meeting date for those nights if we want to attend those board meetings. In the interim, I am working with our district superintendents, or both our district superintendents of the schools. I'll be going talking with Dr. Hart at the Delta College District with them. Just reach out our partnership and communicate with them that we're really interested, and possibly there's some opportunities for partnering at the high school to have some college classes from Delta College out there. So we're kind of trying to open those discussions. The other item is, I'd like to go meet with someone in Cooper, just to, want to introduce myself as the city manager of Galton, and then also talk to them about other, issues with the city, specifically, the Delta College site, just keep them informed of where we're at. When I do that, I'd like to see if there's two council members that, could attend, that meeting with me. I think that would, be a good idea. Just kind of keep that out there. So I'm kind of looking to, see if there's two council members that would like to work with me on their schedules. And,
glad to help you out.
I would too.
So you got four of us.
Okay, I
You guys have a
do
special
too.
meeting?
Put the name in the hat.
Yeah, you do have the CAST committee that works with that 2x2 with the school districts, a little different committee. I believe Councilmember here and Councilmember Campion is on, that committee. That may be a, kind of a connecting point if there's,
That's kind of my concern, Mr. Blasio, is that originally we had chose to kind of pursue the Delta College issues through the CAST committee. And we haven't met in a long time.
Okay.
It makes sense to me that that committee continue to spearhead because we need to cooperate with the other districts. It makes sense to me that Councilman Campion and I continue, I mean, I know the whole council is concerned about the project, or work on the project, but that was the way that we had originally, and I talked to you about this a few weeks ago, that I was concerned that there's a new superintendent, that we have a new city manager, we haven't met. and that we haven't met and discussed Delta College, because I think it is really important that the high school and the elementary school stay very involved with us in this project.
And I have met with Elizabeth Kaufman of the high school district, you know, kind of opening those doors, and we talked about, you know, having, you know, a CAF committee meet. I'll be meeting with Karen Schauer, I believe, next week, kind of talking about, you know, those same issues and trying to pull that committee, you know, back together, and start, you know, that communication. You know, and that would be the CAF committee that would do that. Yeah, I would like, you know, kind of some direction with meeting with our assemblyman. You know, is that, you know, the same committee that does that? You have some connectivity there, because one of the larger issues that we want to discuss and just make them aware of is the Delta College and our partnerships there.
I'm not, you know, I mean, if someone really wants to go to that, that's fine. You know, because it's going to include other items other than Delta College. So I don't have a problem with that, but I do believe that, you know, as it relates to Delta College, that we already made a selection on that committee, and Lori and I, because of being on CAST, that was the appropriate appointees at that time, and I don't see any change in that, so I would like to continue forward working on Delta College.
Okay. I'm all for it.
Okay to me.
Okay.
So, Councilmember Hero, Councilmember Campion, on anything related to Delta College, and then also go talk with Assemblyman Cooper as well? Okay, great.
I didn't say that. It's if you want to, I don't have a problem. I mean, I haven't met the individual, but.
Oh, you haven't met him?
No.
All right, then, I know him.
Okay, thank
But
you.
aren't you and Lori on some other committees and stuff too?
That's the only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know we've got the CAS part taken care of. I didn't quite understand the Assemblyman Cooper portion. Were you welcome to do that as well, or?
Well, I would like to do it, and Mary Lou said she would like to, but she just said that she already knows him, so I haven't met Mr. Cooper, so, Assemblyman Cooper, so it would be nice opportunity to meet him.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Mr. Rudolph.
Looking forward to learning more about chickens.
I thought you learned all you could possibly know 4 years ago.
All right, we'll start down here. Mr. Campion.
I have nothing.
Me either.
Okay. Ms. York?
We have an upcoming dedication, Donna?
Yes, we do, May 26th,
May 26th.
at noon.
Your blessing again.
Dedication of the,
No chickens.
Ames Garden, Community Garden.
Looking
Thank you
forward
very
to
much.
it. Vice Mayor
And
Payne?
then-
I'm sorry.
And then the Strawberry Festival this weekend, and it's coming up, so ask for the community to come out.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't really have much to add after that. I'm just taken back by all the emotions. No, but I hope to see all of you at the dedication. We have the best corn patch in town. You gotta come out and see it. So we'll see you there.
Awesome. Everybody else has pretty much touched on what I was going to go on, but I would like to request the use of my remaining discretionary funds for the military banner program, and to carry anything left over to the next fiscal year if it's not expended. Bring that on the next council member meeting.
How many meetings do we have left?
2 or 3.
Okay.
If it's okay with council, I'd like to have, that reminded me, the grant which the city made last year, I think on both grantees, Project Love and the Historical Society, I don't believe that, I know that the Historical Society has not expended all of their funds, but I've been in contact with them. It's because they had permit delays at the county, and it's put them behind schedule. So if we could put that on the agenda as well to carry that over, whatever remaining funds there are, because they will have future costs, but it will go into the next fiscal year. So if we could bring that forward for carryover, I'd appreciate it.
Sounds good. Anything further? Then this meeting is adjourned.